David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it, you can qualify it through a variety of methods, times, people, places, things. But more simply put, it probably could be even more simply said, if it's orange and blue, and it's what we do. As I try to stumble through a new version of that, we quantify the Auburn experience as Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and Auburn family stuff to kind of put a finer point on things. Here to talk about that experience, we got some family members here. I'm your host, Kyle, and alongside me, as always, the best co-host in the land for episode 98, Mr. Austin Scott. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. War Eagle Kyle, War Eagle to our listeners and viewers. Hope everyone's doing well. And another weekend has passed.
It has passed. We are creeping ever closer to episode 100 and trying to do some special things for that. We'll see what we can or can't make happen for you all, but there's still plenty to just focus on in episode 98 of this Auburn Experience podcast in the middle of what is turning out to be a beautiful October that we wish we could spend on the plains more often. Won't go down that road again, but there's certainly something we got to do on the plains this week that we're going to talk about with SEC Tipoff and some other SEC Tipoff, Auburn Tipoff at Toomer's, and then other things as well. He had to throw the hat on to fix some. Did you feel naked without the hat?
I just needed something Auburn. I needed a hat. That can help.
Are you wearing very gray or vanilla or white? I don't know if that on my screen, if that's what that is. Is that reflective of your feelings based off of this weekend?
No, it's not. It's definitely not meant to be. I usually have something on and I didn't. So thank you, Stan, for letting me know. But luckily in my house, there's no shortage of area to find something.
Oh, I didn't know someone was calling you out in the chat for not wearing anything Auburn. But listen, I think I've got it all covered here. But
you do.
In case anybody wondered, you have it covered behind you as well. We are Auburn fans, and we're qualified to talk about these things. All right, let's get into this. It's going to be a little bit of the same, a little bit different for episode 98. We are going to do Auburn potpourri, but we're going to move into more of a longer form of this potpourri, centralized around some bunch of basketball news. So let's talk about a few other things at the start of this. Let's start off with Auburn soccer. And I'm not necessarily talking about the team, although I will mention them probably in just a little bit. But we're talking about some news for a currently pro former Auburn soccer player in Alyssa Melanson, who just got selected to the U.S. women's national team to now participate with them in some they're called friendly matches. I know that I'm probably not explaining this well to the soccer geeks out there, but I'm also, trying to dumb it down. Basically, she got added to the team to go out there and compete in their camp of sort. This is a big deal because we're talking about an Auburn soccer player, former soccer player, getting recognized at the national stage, which continues to build his Auburn brand in yet another sport. We just keep doing it, Austin.
We just keep doing it. Keep seeing Auburn people rise to big stages. Alyssa Melanson's no different. And so that'll be really exciting for her. I don't think you see as many people as you would see in other things tag along on Auburn or on the U.S. women's national stage in the Auburn culture. Those don't intersect as much as maybe other areas of the country. But hey, if Alyssa Melanson starts getting some good playing time, you'll see Auburn people tune in.
She's quite the defender, is what she became known for here at Auburn, currently playing for Bay FC in their respective league, and obviously joining that training camp roster. So we'll continue to watch to see if she does big things, stays on the roster, but quite the accomplishment for her. And obviously we claim it a little bit as Auburn fans as well, loving to see that brand continue to build on the professional stage. Really quickly, I want to run through some of the results this week outside of the big things that we'll talk about before we get into our major basketball topics today. For a lot of the other teams out there this week, how they performed. Volleyball did drop 2 losses, both on the road to Alabama and Tennessee, bringing them to 14-4. Soccer is now 12-1, and every time I see this number increase, it upsets me, Austin. 3 with ties. Another tie at Kentucky. I hate ties with every bit of my being. Cross country just finished up the pre-nationals at Wisconsin, where they tied 30th. Or not tied, they got 30th for the men, 6th overall for the women, and one of our ladies, Brenda Jepchirchir, I think is how you say that.
There you go.
1st overall, and then finishing up with number 1 equestrian, still undefeated at 3-0, taking down SMU 11-6 at home.
Big revenge game.
Big revenge game. We won't go into it. I got hurt feelings about that in the postseason with Auburn in question the last couple of years. But let's talk about basketball. This is a week full of basketball content. We have got even a bigger segment coming up for a tip-off at Toomers, which we're going to focus on that. So that is coming up. But let's talk about preseason opinions, discussions. We do this for SEC Media Days in football. Now we're doing it for SEC basketball for men and women. This week they had SEC tip-off. First the men went, then the women. And we were able to obviously hear from Coach Bruce Pearl, Coach Johnny Harris. Coach Johnny Harris was joined by Diana Gaston. I know I mispronounced everybody's names. I'm so sorry. Taylon Collins, who's been around for at least one season, and then with Coach Pearl, Janai Broom, and Denver Jones. Does it feel real now that we've had SEC tip-off that basketball is just around the corner, Austin?
I mean, with everything else that went on this week too, it definitely feels like it is right around the corner. We talked about it a little bit last week that this week is kind of the real taste of, hey, it's coming. And certainly all the media votes, all the quotes that came out this week, and then all the preseason matchups certainly show it. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see where this team goes. And obviously they're highly thought of.
You know, one of the things that was really interesting, both of them, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's two different things, right? You're still talking about a Coach Johnny Harris team that is continuing a rise back, under her leadership over these last several seasons to prominence, or at least being considered hey, when you come play at Auburn, or even Auburn comes to play you for women's basketball, you take us seriously at this point. Right. But you've got a Coach Pearl team with a team that is expected to be really good. And there's a lot of conversation in the preseason at this SEC tip-off event about the schedule that was put forth for Auburn this year. And we've already talked about that a bunch. We've been updating you in every episode about a new element to that, how tough it's going to be. But that was some of the bigger conversations that happened in SEC tip-offs this week. But even with those conversations, there comes other things: rankings, predictions, people on certain lists. Let's start with some rankings outside the SEC. Let's talk about the big picture first for Auburn men's basketball, because this is a big story here. We have the AP poll that has come out for men's basketball. Auburn is currently ranked 11th in that. And another one that a lot of Auburn, not just Auburn basketball fans, college basketball fans put a lot of stock in is the Ken Pom rankings, which Auburn is currently ranked 3rd in. So obviously both of these things are very, very important and give you a perspective of what's expected of Auburn this year. As I bring them up on screen for you now, you can see we've got obviously Auburn in the 11th spot in the AP poll, and then the Ken Pom rankings. If you want to freeze the frame there, if you're watching the replay or something like that, if you're watching the video portion of this, you can see all the different analytics that go into that. So, Austin, your thoughts, your breakdown of these rankings: 11 AP, Ken Pom 3 for Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Ken Pom especially, I think I see, first off, it cannot stand out, or it cannot not stand out that Auburn's going to play half the teams on our list of top 15 here.
Yeah.
Which with Ken Pom, that it's an equation, right? And so strength of schedule goes into that kind of thing. So obviously we've talked about at length Auburn's non-conference schedule being very difficult, exactly how Bruce Pearl wants it, playing the best of the best. So obviously they're going to be rated higher. The two teams ahead of them are going to be played here within the next month and a half against Auburn. So I think that doesn't really surprise me, but very still cool to see that, this is not just an objective viewing of how hard the schedule is. Everybody knows it, and it's coming up. AP poll, it's about where I thought Auburn would be. I thought maybe they'd crack the top 10. You've got all the other traditional names there, it feels like, and a host of teams that Auburn's going to play too. So certainly room to move themselves up. I think, when you look at both of these rankings here, you see Auburn might be where they are, but in the SEC, they're right there at first or second. And that's where you want to be, and hopefully they can maintain those positions.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's look now at the SEC overall rankings. I think there's a great transition into that, and take a look at that. I've got that here for you now. So this is the predicted order of finish from the SEC media for Auburn basketball and for the rest of the SEC. And look right up there at the top: Alabama and Auburn, and then your usual cast of characters, at least some of them, Tennessee and Arkansas finish out the top 4. Texas A&M, Florida, Texas, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Georgia, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, and Vandy all the way down to the. Are we looking at the football rankings or what we used to know as
I
the
was about
football
to say,
rankings?
gosh, Kentucky at 8. My goodness.
It's very weird to look at this. It is odd. Like you said with the regular rankings or the AP, the Ken Palm, not a shock to see Auburn ranked high in the Ken Palm. Not shocked to see Auburn at least flirting with the top 10 based on expectations, who they returned with those particular rankings like the AP. But we're now talking about the SEC. What are your thoughts on Auburn and Alabama 1 and 2? Just in predictions. I mean, it's predictions. It doesn't mean that's how it's going to go down. What is this? What was your reaction when you saw this?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I wasn't as surprised that Alabama was picked the preseason SEC favorite. Everybody knew they were returning a lot. They've gotten a bunch in the portal to add to their offensive talent. But I think I was kind of surprised Auburn was too. I just thought, it doesn't always seem like Auburn gets the benefit of that doubt.
Yep.
Everybody knows Janai Broom now, and everybody knows the prowess and prominence of Coach Pearl's strategies and philosophy. So I think that helps. But at the same time, the state of the SEC this year is going to run. Well, the state of the SEC is going to run through the state of the Alabama.
The state of the SEC is Alabama,
which it's just so weird to even think about and say. But Auburn and Alabama are definitely the cream of the crop in the SEC this year going into it. Now, it's not to say that there won't be fierce competition because it is a stacked league top to bottom. Now that you've added Texas and Oklahoma, it only adds even more. So it'll be really interesting. It is going to be a dogfight once we start that SEC conference schedule. But my goodness, Auburn and Alabama at the top. I don't think I'd have believed you if you told me.
Yeah, it feels surreal. It feels like, people accuse the NFL of being scripted. When you look at that matchup of Auburn and Alabama to finish out the year in Auburn, and you see how we started the season, you got to think somebody in the SEC office is really hedging their bets a little bit about, making some money on a particular broadcast. And I think that I either put it out on our Twitter account or my own about somebody, knew what they were doing when they scheduled that Auburn Alabama matchup.
Well, the saying isn't always, it just means more. Sometimes you got to add, it just means more money.
That's what it always means in the SEC. Let's be real. So there's some rankings. There's some predictions. Lastly, coming from this week, and these aren't surprises, right? At least one of them's not. SEC media also gave out votes for the preseason people for first team, second team. And I think at least last year, I don't think they did a third team. We're going to be talking about that. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about your Auburn representatives. And you can see the images brought up here that Auburn University put out this week. First team All SEC, Janai Broom. Duh. Third team All SEC, Chad Baker Mazzara. So obviously, Janai has got to be on a team. And if he wasn't on the first team, then anybody voting needs to have their votes revoked from them immediately. Chad Baker Mazzara making a team I don't think is surprising. I guess maybe you could have a debate. Should he have been second or third team given how dynamic he is and also a big energy guy too. I don't know. I think I don't know if that's a debate for you, Austin, but first let's start with Janai. Any shock here that he's on the first team?
No, we'd be having a very, very ranting discussion if Janai Broom was not put on the first team. It makes sense. I'm not surprised in the least bit. He's going to prove that this year. He's already been on some preseason first team All-American teams nationwide too. Everybody knows Janai Broom is a game changer and a difference maker, and I'm so glad he's back.
So glad he's back. Chad Baker Mazzara, I like that he's getting some respect. You also wonder, does he not make second team because of obviously he had the way he ended the season last year for himself, and he gets a reputation with that big energy there. You think that in any way kept him off second team, or you think they were able just to vote based off that?
Possibly. I think when you tell me there's 3 All SEC teams, that tells me that Chad Baker is viewed as, a top 15, top 20 player in this league. That's pretty good. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if I would have put him there. Just when you look at how deep the league is now,
sure.
I think you could make a case for some other guys on Auburn's roster in the spot instead. But that's how Chad Baker-Mazara viewed. I think, honestly, if anything, I think the fact of how he's able to not manipulate a game, but change a game by what he can do on the court, off the court, mentally, physically, might have gotten him some credit there. That he is that much of an asset for Auburn. So I'm happy to see him there. I would love to see him perform like a third-team All-SEC player this year. If he does, Auburn's going to be in a very good shape.
Well, to round us out, since you brought it up,
I knew you were going to do this.
Yeah, listen, you're the one that brought this topic up, so you only have yourself to blame. I wasn't going to go there till you brought it up. All SEC first team is Janai. All SEC third team is Chad Baker-Mazara, but you say that maybe let's not even make it about Chad, but you say there's somebody on Auburn's roster that maybe deserves a little bit more recognition for one of these teams. Who would it be?
I really think Denver Jones could be third team All SEC. I think he's deserving of it. I think he came on late. I think that's probably what kept him off.
Sure,
is he didn't really have the whole body of a season work. But I think with how it's looking like he's going to be have a main and priority role in Auburn's backcourt this year with a lot of younger guys around him. I think Denver Jones could easily challenge by the end of the season when we're talking about the real All SEC teams that come out. Denver Jones might have a spot on there.
And think about it this way. This is supposed to be a prediction of what's going to happen at the end of the year. So you would think that would play a little bit more than what you're just inferring there, maybe how slow he got off to the last year and wasn't scoring as much until the end of the year may have affected that. I mean, obviously it has to play into their decisions.
I think too, it doesn't, these kind of lists, and I don't know this for sure, but this might be all across the country wide. I'd be interested to see how many, guys who have never even played a minute for their new teams in the transfer era are on these lists. I think Miles Kelly could be on this list too, but he's such an unknown by coming from Georgia Tech that he might not be getting as much from the SEC media. So it'll be really interesting to see where these guys line up. I think Auburn's got guys who could be all up and down these lists and might be come March.
Certainly. Great recognition for Janai and Chad and several others could be that. But whether you're excited about rankings, whether you're excited about predictions and finishes and who made this and what team, basketball, folks, is just around the corner.
Coming.
Get excited. Let's move into the things that aren't so good right now. It's football season, folks. So whether you want to or not, we have to talk about it. Okay. We've got to hash it out. We got to discuss it. We got to make peace with some things. We are sitting here in episode 98 of the Auburn Experience podcast after a Missouri game that I think, once again, I would really caution folks to check their emotions at the door. Obviously, it's a little emotions after the game, and considering the context we're going to talk about it is warranted. But can I remind folks, based off the current team's status and their performance thus far, you weren't expected to win this game. Some of you may have expected to win this game based on maybe the team was improving and, maybe Missouri looked a little bit less formidable than they did at the beginning of the season, which I kind of was very questionable about, to be honest with you. I don't know. I thought some of the reactions to Auburn losing 21-17, that was the final score, correct? I've forgotten that. Yeah,
that's right.
Was a little bit overblown. We've talked about this a lot. It's a year that's very frustrating for a lot of reasons as Auburn sits 2-5 on the year. Just initial thoughts and reactions, Austin, for you after we sit here in misery.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and it's another game where it looks like Auburn can't close it out. It's another game where it looks like Auburn had chances, had the opportunity to put it away and could not. And I think we even put it out. It's like once the fourth quarter hits, Auburn fans are just waiting on it, and we're sitting here saying this is too good to be true. And it's been that way from the very beginning of the month, and so it stings. It's one that felt like it got away, and you can say I saw it coming all day long, but it's still disappointing and hurts nonetheless. I think there's fair criticism on this is the offense still looking not as polished coming off a bye week.
Right,
that's totally fair.
Yep.
I think that there were also some things that they found that worked. I don't think it's reasonable to expect this team to get to 30 points in an SEC game. I don't think that's going to be the case. And truthfully, I don't think you need it. This defense has shown that they can be a very good defensive unit and hold top scoring offenses in the SEC at bay. But the offense just hasn't helped them so far. We could point to a variety of different things in this game, but I think when you look at the last few games for Auburn, and I think that I know I'm going to sound like I am saying be patient and sunshine pump and all whatever you want to call it, but
You just
you
sunshine pump away.
sunshine
That's fine.
pumper. But the fact of the matter is I can point to like 3 different instances in the last. We'll not count the Georgia game. 3 different instances in the last 3 games, SEC games, that just made it where it didn't break Auburn's way. You've got Arkansas, I think the 3rd and 19 Hail Mary in the middle of the 3rd quarter by Taylor Green puts that game away. The pick 6 against Oklahoma and Robert Lewis dropping the touchdown to get in against Missouri yesterday. You're that close away from being 5-2 or worse 4-3. And I think any Auburn fan would take that right now. So it's just, we've all seen the graphics of the win probability. We've all seen the graphics of where how close this Auburn team looks like they should be putting a game away, and they just haven't. And it's disappointing. We're getting into a broader subject here, but I don't know what needs to change. I feel pretty adamant and confident that a coaching change is not warranted, it's not necessary, and it would be asinine to do so at this point. But I do think I think something needs to change. I think something needs to happen. I don't know what that is. I'm hoping that maybe the staff can figure that out soon.
Is it sorry, I know I was making faces during your rant there because you kind of literally triggered me from something I do want to talk about. So I'll save it for a second. That's the big thing I think coming out of this game is maybe 2 things. I saw it coming as a big storyline. Something needs to change. Folks, can I submit something to you? That something may not be the team. That something may be your understanding of where we're at as a program. And we've talked about that. I don't know if Austin agrees with me or not. I think he agrees on some level, maybe he disagrees where I'm heading with this. You have to understand the context of what we chose to do several years ago that brought us to this point. And if you can't understand that, reason with it. And even if you don't want to agree with what I'm alluding to right now, that was the wrong decision to make, you can't argue then and not look at this results now and say, hey, there may be something to that. I may not fully agree with it, but we made a mistake that sent us down a path that we didn't necessarily have to or need to go to. I think the thing that needs to change is you, the Auburn faithful. Unfortunately, and I know some of you I'm preaching to the choir to. I know some of you are getting the back of your neck is standing up right now because how dare he say that to us. But the thing that may be to change is you and understanding that this team is really not, this program is not in a good place. And you can call for every change that you want to. You can call out every player that you want to, that you'll never say those things to their face. But you're not doing any favors to your team or your program by continuing to behave that way on social media. And you may say, well, what I say doesn't really matter. It kind of does. It does. It may not affect the outcome of a football game, but it does matter. It matters in how we're perceived. It matters in how we go about our way of saying the Auburn family and all that stuff. And I get it. There's going to be thousands of people take 5,000 different things wrong that I say here, but that's just kind of what I think. The change for me, because that's the new, what needs to change. It's the Auburn expectations right now with where we're at.
Well, I don't think that even having that, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you think you're going into every game or you're going into this Kentucky game this weekend thinking, well, we're going to lose again.
Right.
You can still be optimistic and still be excited, but recognize that, this team is not going to be a world beater, and this team is not going to be an offensive machine because they're not there. And you can pin that on whatever you want to pin it on, whether you think Hugh Freeze should be the offensive guru he's given the freedom to be, or you can put it on Peyton Thorne being a 5-year starter and saying he should be where the fact of the matter, it's not. And I think that we have to come to grips with that and still pull for these kids because they're Auburn. Right. At the end of the day, I didn't figure out how to pull for Auburn because I don't know what I'm trying to say. I didn't end up deciding to pull for Auburn because I expected to win every game. Just fact of the matter. And some of you are like that. Some of you want to say, well, I want to win every game because the other team on the side of the state does. That's not why I pulled for Auburn. It's certainly not ever going to be the case because I went to Auburn. I grew up loving Auburn. And it's a much bigger issue than I'm just going to pull for these kids because we got something in common. I'm getting on a much bigger conversation, but
we do need to kind of go back to the game, but I think this is part of this. So go ahead. Finish.
yes.
Yeah.
No, well, I think that's all. But I think that the fact of the matter is this team is showing progress. If you can't agree with that, I don't know what else to tell you. But I think this team showed progress. I think they showed they're willing to give Jarquez Hunter more carries. I think we're all happy to see that. He got more attention. I think he can even get more. I think he can even get more. And I think Auburn showed that once they do that, some other stuff opens up. A beautiful ball to Cam Coleman. An absolute beautiful dime.
A dime.
Yes, just gorgeous ball. And I think you have to be optimistic and see that that's what they're capable of if they can find the right things. Now, I already said it, but if Robert Lewis catches the ball,
oh my gosh,
we're talking about a win right now, folks. We're talking about a road top 20 win. Now he didn't. I know he didn't. Ifs, ands, and buts, whatever you want to say, he didn't catch the ball. But you have to see there. And that drop was also a dime. That's correct. But I think you have to see that this team is capable of doing things that get them wins in this league. But at the end of the day, they did it. And I think everybody in that locker room knows it.
You got to stop bringing the drop up. I mean, because
it's all you can think about.
Have you? I'm literally convulsing here for those watching live because I'm gonna tell you this much. It takes a lot to get me upset about something and just scream at the TV. And unfortunately, my wife and my mother-in-law had to see that this game. And Robert, I'm looking right in the screen at you, brother. This is less about you and more about a microcosm of stuff. I do hope that as a upperclassman, and I think you can make that point, but also that doesn't give you the right to be unkind to people.
That's right.
You should have high expectations. That doesn't give you the right to say things that aren't reasonable to people. But if you went in the privacy of your home, just scream at the TV because he's like that's on you. You do what you do in the privacy of your home. Some of y'all a little weird. Is on you. I screamed at the TV when Robert Lewis, not even like, not even like had his hand. I mean, just went straight through his hands. I get that some of y'all don't like Peyton Thorne. You've made that clear. The boy cannot do anything more perfectly in that moment. And he did other things great, and he did things bad throughout the game. The problem ain't Peyton Thorne, folks. The problem is more holistic than that. Got to understand at this point, if that's your only point in all this, you're just not a reasonable person.
I think it comes down to a lot of it with the drop, and I think we'd be fit. And this is nothing against these guys personally. We're just talking about the game, but I think you have to look at execution, and you can blame Coach Freeze for the plays. You can blame whoever you want for the offensive plan up into the game. At the end of the day, we've got a missed field goal, we've got a drop touchdown, and we've got other areas that point to what happened changing the outcome of that game. And that's execution. And so I think that we have talked about this so many times but on the show, but I think it continues to be everything has to come together. Everything has to come together.
Yep. And
this team is not at a point where they're able to put all the facets together in the three phases of the game, on and off the sideline. So it's coming. I truly, really believe that. I would not say that just to string people along. I really, truly believe it's coming. And I really, truly believe this team's going to get a conference win, if not two. It's going to take time. Overall, this season in the program, it's just going to take time.
It is. It's going to take time. A couple things off the game I want to talk about. There was this big narrative the last 2 weeks, and you brought it up. Run Jarquez, run Jarquez, run Jarquez. And everybody said, that's the only thing that we need to do. I can't tell you how many people swore up and down that. I finally had some people, kind of swallow their pride and come back and admit, hey, you might have said it because I told you guys simply running the ball more is not going to fix things, and not running the ball more specifically to Jarquez. It has to be a holistic fix across the board. Now, as you pointed out, having success with Jarquez certainly opens things up
a lot,
but you got to, never mind, I'm not going to go back to it. You got to catch the ball. And you got to block for the dude, any of them. But Jarquez did not have a good day, and it's not really that much his fault. I mean, I don't know the nuances of every play. Maybe he hit a hole he wasn't supposed to every once in a while, just because the blocking he thought he didn't have set up or anything like that. Look, it's not that simple. A couple of I've been overusing phrases a lot. It's not that simple. It didn't have to be this way. All all that kind of stuff. That frustrated me a little bit because I don't think it was a good day running the ball. I think maybe that's more where I'm a little bit more emotional in that. The other element too, and we're starting to have some problems with this more so, and I'm feeling so bad for him. Do you know where I'm going? Kicking.
Towns. Yeah.
Towns. I feel so bad for the kid. I really do.
Oh, no.
He's struggling, and there's this thing called the yips that if it's just you're in your head. It's not even about kicking. It's about, maybe if you're a batter going up for baseball and you just can't make contact with the ball, or maybe you're making contact and it's not getting through no matter what you do. I just feel bad for the kid right now. He's struggling, and he's been asked to do a lot in his freshman year. And I don't know what, I mean, there's critics. You should be able to make these simple kicks. I'm saying that as a former, I have clout to say that, folks, and I could have conversations with people, because I've actually been there. I've missed ones like that. You should be able to make those things, but sometimes, man, it ain't working.
It's not working. And we talked about it when he was having a lot of success. He's been put in a position he himself did not expect to be in, coming off and expected to come in as a backup to a kid who hadn't missed a field goal in a college football game yet.
Still hasn't.
And it sounds like Alex McPherson's getting better, and I think this team is ready. I don't know Towns. I don't know his mind. I would bet you he's kind of ready for Alex to come on back, just to clear his mind. But I'm hopeful that that's going to help. But I feel for Towns. But at the end of the day, you hope that those kickers can go out there and do it, and sometimes they just can't. We have been on a very fortunate several years of the kickers being reliable and being able to trust that they're going to go in there and make the kick. And right now, Auburn's relying on a true freshman walk-on, and
Yep.
That's kind of where it's at.
That's where it's at right now. I do want to mention a couple of good things. The obviously the punt, it wasn't a block, but it was the muffed punt that they picked up and ran back. That was great. We talked about the beautiful pass for the touchdown to Cam Coleman. You can't throw it any better. That was a great thing. I thought the defense for 3.5 quarters, and really I'll just say the whole game, because you got to expect at some point you just wear down on
a 17-play, 95-yard drive at the end of the game. Yeah, I'm not going to fault them for that in the least bit. Now they're going to tell you they wish that they could have done it and they should have been able to do it, but that's a long time to be on the field after a long game.
That, and can we just say this, folks, that you may dislike Peyton Thorne all you want and say terrible things about him. He ain't as bad as the backup from Missouri. Missouri couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I'm just going to be honest with you. And he's not our guy, so I can say what I want about him. So
I don't know what kind of doctors they got at the Columbia Hospital, but Brady Cook came back feeling real good.
Brady Cook needs to be investigated for some type of enhancement stuff.
There's some superhero serum up at the Columbia Hospital.
When that man was like doing, in place jogging on the sideline, and I said, Lord, here we go. It's the fourth quarter. And
we've all seen that movie too many times. It was either when the backup came in, I was just shocked enough that he wasn't about to be a Heisman candidate. And then when Brady Cook comes out, I have a text to my brother. I said, Brady Cook is about to become a legend.
He is.
He sure enough did.
It wasn't. We just had the wrong quarterback that we were going to make a Heisman. Legend.
That's right.
It was the one. He was who we thought he was.
That's right.
That's all it would amount to. Final note, I think it's a good thing to bring up from the chat. Fairweather took an incredibly hard shot.
Oh my goodness!
I do think it was a fair hit. I think
it was. I agree.
Somebody made the point that it could have been a defenseless receiver thing. I'm tired. But
I don't think you can make that claim if you're also the one complaining about the targeting being in the game at all. And we have a lot of people that do that. So it's you can't have it both ways.
So I'm glad it seemed like he got off the field, under his own power after just writhing in pain. I was very worried for him. I started thinking about something might be wrong internally, the way he just couldn't catch it, oh man. So a lot of ups and downs and emotional. And I know we spend a large portion of this segment talking about the emotions and the expectations and stuff like that. And I know some of y'all aren't going to hear even the amount of reason that we put there, but I hope everybody will take a deep breath, enjoy the football, because you're not guaranteed to have it tomorrow, folks. We've learned that before. Enjoy it while you got it, because Auburn football and being an Auburn fan is still the best thing in the land. Let's move on and talk a little bit about basketball yet again. I know we spent a lot in our early part of our show talking about I keep wanting to call it SEC Media Days, SEC Tip-Off, and rankings and expectations and first and second teams. But Auburn's pretty good on its own about doing some preseason stuff too for basketball, men's and women's. And yet again, we have the return of Auburn's tip-off at Toomer's, literally plopping a basketball half court in the intersection of Magnolia and College at that wonderful little location of Toomer's Corner and playing some basketball. Now, I will tell you, as this has gone on, it's become less and less about playing basketball and more about a celebration, having fun with it. And as just kind of a wafting overview before we dive into the details of it, Austin, I'm going to step out on a limb here and say this is the best one that they have ever done.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons. And you would hope that as you continue to do this thing, that it gets better and better. They figure out what has and hasn't worked. I will tell you, I was shocked that we did the dunk contest. And now last time it was canceled because of it was very damp out there. However, I thought, there's probably still going to be some moisture in the air, and that seems very risky, but I think they're very strategic with who they let do the dunk contest, if you catch my drift, in terms of you're not going to run Janai out there and do that. It just seemed like Janai most of the night was just running around with his camera up there on the court and having fun and knocking the ball away from the women's basketball team. Janai, can I just say this? I know we're supposed to be talking about tip-off here, but Janai seems to be the most comfortable player for Auburn basketball, like in his element, that I've seen in quite some time. I love his story because I think he's the quintessential story of NIL changing how players view themselves, their opportunities, being able to take care of themselves, their families, helping them make decisions that are wiser to not rush off to the next level, and that you may not even make officially, because you can get drafted, but you might get kicked off if you may have an injury there. So Janai, I just love. I think he just is, to me, as a guy that's genuinely enjoying his time at Auburn and taking it in for the fullest. So I was there. I can talk about it a lot, but let's hear, outside perspectives from stuff you saw. Any questions or any thoughts? You have the floor first about tip-off at Toomer's.
Yeah, I was not able to make it. It was one of those things when the schedule came out, we kind of assumed we might not make all of it. We probably wouldn't make it. It's definitely geared a little more to those either in college or can spend the night at the thing without some toddlers making their life crazy. That was us. And we actually came down with just some sickness in our house, so it was smart for us not to go at all anyway. However, obviously around the city leading up to it, heard a lot about it, looking forward to it. It seemed like it was a great event from what I saw from online or what I saw from what E2C put out. Everything seemed really good. It's been positive from what I've heard around the community. So, Kyle, what all would you say? Were you there the entire time from start to finish? Stayed through Cole Swindell rocking your jorts and everything?
Is that a thing with him?
I don't know, man.
I'm a square. I don't know anything about Cole Swindell. I obviously did not stay for the concert, mainly because I had work to do. We had to get content out. By the way, downtown Auburn, can we please fix whatever signal issues are out there? I get that there is 10,000 people trying to use the same area, but it really shouldn't be that bad, even when there's not that many. Like, I've been there and I'm the only one at Toomer's Corner, and it is slow as all get out, and then it just is non-existent when there's 10,000 people there. So I had work to do. And I'm not a big concert fan, but I'm going to tell you what, the report is over 10,000 people.
How about it?
And if you'll go watch some of the video that we put out. I put out the whole event for you, everything that happened on the basketball side of things, and some stuff leading up to it. I think we got a highlight video we're going to put out tomorrow if you don't want to watch that whole thing, but do check that out. It's pretty cool. We put all the dunks out there for the dunk contest too, if you want that. But I literally turned my camera around just to kind of get a shot of what was behind me because I was up at the front. I got there 3 hours early.
Yeah, you
just
did.
to make sure we had good, at least best we could, views of the action. And when I turned that camera around and brought it back down to me, because I raised it up on this little stick thing, I was shocked to see how deep we were on the Toomer's drugstore side of things, meaning like
Okay.
going down College towards the railroad tracks.
One of my questions was where you were.
So this year they put the media, those that were credentialed, on the, I'll say the south side of College, and we were on the north side. You could still stand behind the media and obviously facing the stage, which went, I'm doing all my directions right now, east on Magnolia. But the west side behind us was just stage area,
Gotcha.
all that kind of stuff. So it was 3-sided this time, not 4-sided, which, you know, it does kind of make everything feel a little bit more compact and pressed in because there's less space for people to spread out around. So I think that helped in as well. But people showed up for this. I mean, lots of people. And obviously tons of college students were there for Cole Swindell and the basketball. But I mean, families, I'm blanking on their names. I got the opportunity to stand 7 hours, felt like it, 3 hours beforehand with some parents of one of the Tiger Paws. And, so there were families out there. They did a really good job of making this a well-rounded environment outside of it being a Thursday night.
Sure.
It's my biggest gripe with this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of brought it up. It's hard for you to justify doing this on a weeknight.
Can you think, is there a reason? Can you think of, like, especially on an away game weekend? I mean, my only thing I could think of, and I don't know if when they planned it, this was the case, but Auburn High brings a lot of people to their games, and they were out of town. But I don't know if maybe they were thinking maybe Auburn High is going to be at home. That high school football gets big around here, and so I don't know if that had something to do with the thinking, but
I think it's more so they know what happens on Friday nights, and that's going to be even more difficult to keep in check. When you have a concert on a Friday night and everybody doesn't have to go to work. I think there's probably several reasons for it. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter because they got over 10,000 people. And I turned around to get out and I literally asked the questions like, are any of y'all going to let me out of here? I mean, it took me coaxing people to let me out because no one wanted to move. They wanted to hold their spot for Cole Swindell, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, let's talk about the basketball and the event. Obviously, they introduced the teams. We got to hear from Coach Johnny Harris, got to hear from Coach Bruce Pearl. They had a shooting competition, which I really, really like this. They put 5 spots out on the half court, and they had to make them in order. One was just a layup, free throw, a side 3-pointer, top of the key 3-pointer, and then we'll call it a half court shot. It wasn't a half court shot, which was going to be the most difficult. Team 4 ended up winning. I think it had JP Pegues. Who else did it have? Really tall guy, one of our walk-ons. Forgetting the ladies there. They won that thing. We had the dunk contest, which Chaney Johnson won, but I think the hearts of the fan. Yes, Chaney Johnson won it.
I feel like I only saw Ja'Kai Howard's.
Here's the problem. Ja'Kai could not get one of his opportunities to duck down. And so by score, he lost. But I think I was going to say he won the hearts.
He won the internet.
He won the internet. I mean, we put that when I got within cell service, that's the first thing I put out was Ja'Kai Howard's dunk. I knew that people wanted to see that, and we had a pretty cool angle of it. Got a cool shot that we put up of him going over the 2 guys to start with, and then he jumped over 3. He jumped over Bruce Pearl and Obby to start with, and then as his final one, he jumped over 3 of his teammates. And he can fly, man. That's what I hear. He's pretty incredible. So go check that out if you're interested.
Did the women have anything like that? Like it sounds like the shooting competition was combined.
That was a co-ed event, dunking for men.
Is there anything women only?
No, it wasn't. But then you had a knockout competition with fans mixed in, which I thought was really fun.
You mean bump?
What did you just say?
Bump. That's what we call it, bump.
Who calls it that?
People.
What people?
That
Like
I'm not.
people with sense?
Well, this is not
No, no,
this is not a conversation I thought we'd ever get into on this
no,
show.
no, no, no. I'm not going
It
to
was
sweat the
bump
sand.
until I got to college. I had never heard it called knockout.
Well, there's a reason for that because you're wrong. You're just wrong. It's knockout. I
I have
cannot
heard
believe.
I called it bump my whole life until I got to college.
I don't know what to say. I mean, I've been
There's some
disappointed.
other one too. I always see this pop up like once a year on social media, but there's some other name for it too. But I know knockout. I know knockout is like the general consensus, and so that's what I've come to like. I'll say, oh, knockout or bump. That's what I've come to say because I can't let it go. But I'm just saying. I saw it, and I saw when it was put out that they were playing that game, and I saw the debate start. So I just had to see what yours
I
was.
think I'm more
You're a
upset.
knockout guy. That's fine.
I think I'm more upset with this than I was the drop by Robert Lewis in the end zone this weekend. I'll be honest with you. This
Gotcha.
is bad.
Gotcha's the other game. Have you heard it called gotcha?
Gotcha. Well, I thought you were getting me when you said it was called bump. So I'm really sad that that's what you've
That's
called
fine.
this game.
You can be a knockout guy. You can be a knockout guy.
What an interesting segment that was. So they played that with the fans. That was kind of cute and fun and all that kind of stuff. So there's nothing really the ladies did by themselves. I don't know that time would have warranted to do like just a 3-point competition with them, but to me, it felt like there was not a lot of downtime, like in a good way, with this event, which to me sometimes had lacked in the other. I think it's is it 2 iterations or is this the 4th iteration?
There's one where he got canceled, so I can't remember.
So this would be the 3rd that's happened, 4th. If you
4th year they tried, I think.
Yeah. So I would say that the first one felt like there was too much in it. The second one felt like there was just a lot of extra time and downtime and trying to figure out how to keep people entertained. This one just flowed nice. And it's no shock that, we're going to give them a shout out here again. Rhett Hobart, Paris Buchanan, I'm just naming the 2 that are top of my head right now that continue to do the fan experience type of things. I think bringing them on board, and this is right in their wheelhouse.
Start to finish, how long?
So the basketball event was an hour. As on
the dot. Nice.
On the dot. But they brought up pre that Coach Brent Crouch for volleyball to come update that. You had some VIP events. They got to come up and shoot pre-show. You had some local music play a couple of hours before, all that kind of stuff. And, good vibes and energy, all that stuff. So when you talk about the event, the venue, the timing of everything, the basketball related stuff, I think they have finally found their sweet spot for this event. And I'm not saying 100% that they're going to do it every year now, because there's so much more that has to go into this meticulously planning and all that stuff. But if this is the formula that they're going to do going forward with this, and have something to end the night with, like Cole Swindell concert, even though I don't really care one way or the other, to keep the people around and that energy going the whole time, this is it, man. I think
thumbs up. Is that what I just saw?
I think we figured it out. Tipoff at Toomers, which is always a great idea, has figured out its formula. And I want to see it happen this way, at least this
format.
Thank you. For the rest of the time. And hopefully we can get your twin boys, behaving and not sick, so you guys can come out and experience it too.
I think next year when we're 2.5, that sounds like a good time to get them out there. So.
It does sound like a good idea and a good time for them to get out there, because I need somebody to stand with me for 3 hours.
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring them to you. Say we'll be back. Emily and I are gonna go grab a bite to eat, and we'll come back.
I'll be honest with you. I would have been glad to have not. I enjoyed my company with the parents of the Tiger Paws that were with me, and a couple of the other students that were there. But you can only talk about so much with anybody for so long, and so we all just kind of sat there probably the last hour, just like before things started picking up, and they interviewed Coach Crouch and all that stuff. Anyway, all that to be said, Tipoff at Toomers, 2 thumbs up, ready to do it again. Let's keep it going. That's going to do it for episode 98 of the Auburn Experience podcast. We thank you guys so much for listening to us tonight and joining in on the conversation post show for those of you that stick around. If you want to keep up with me, do so on Twitter at Kyle Loomis 24. Where can they find you, Austin?
Yeah, at Austin G. Scott, if you feel so inclined to volunteer to follow me, go right ahead.
Volunteer to follow me. Well, thank you for volunteering to listen and watch our content here. We appreciate you being here. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
All right, folks, that is the end of our recording part. We're moving into our Q&A segment. Austin is going to stick around with